back to the podcast today. We have Sally who's coming on today to talk about how to live with bipolar. Sally was diagnosed when she was younger in her teenage years, and throughout her lifetime, she has wrestled with this and has become an advocate and an ally and a source of information on what it's like to live with bipolar. And it's an interesting conversation we have today. Hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something. And if this is something that touches you or your family, maybe there's some insight here in the episode that can be of assistance to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the podcast family. And we hope that what you hear today will be beneficial and you'll enjoy. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Dave. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter. I have Sally Alter with me today, an author with 2 books. And she is in Texas, South Texas. It's really warm down there, and it's nice and cool up here in Canada. So we'll send some nice, cool weather your way, Sally. Nice to meet you today. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, David. I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. And at any time you can't hear me properly, just let me know, and I'll make sure we ask the questions so you can hear them. But really glad to share your books today with our audience. And you are my first topic, my first author on this topic. And I'm really interested to get your wisdom and your experiences and share with the audience about your story. So I'm going to let you tell us the story on how the books were written and why your topic is important for our listeners today.
Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. Where do I begin? Let's see. I'll tell you where the first time I got bipolar disorder. Shall I take you back to that?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Yes. We'll start at the beginning. Okay.
Excellent.
Well, I'm 75 nearly, so it's going back a long way.
Wow.
I have to go back to when I was 15. My father died when I was 10, and my mother died when I was 15. So there was a lot of trauma, and trauma is one of the reasons that people get bipolar. It's not the only reason. There's genetics and imbalance of chemicals in the brain, but nobody has a clear understanding of it yet. There's still a mystery. So we'll go back to when I was 15 and my mother died. And instead of feeling sad and miserable, I felt really manic. I got my first manic episode then. So it was a real shock. I was elated, which doesn't go well with death. I was very excited, and I had ideas coming into my head all at once, and I couldn't think straight. And I was, it was a ward in England. So the wards are very long, and they've got patients either side on the beds. And I thought it was my duty to entertain everybody in the ward. So
Wow.
I went down to all the patients and was cracking jokes and everything, and my mother's dying. So this was really bad, a very bad episode. And that's how it began.
Really?
And then from there, I had 10 years before I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And it takes on average 10 years. So that's not unusual. It's very hard to diagnose, in fact. So when I was 25, I got the diagnosis, and I was put on lithium, which helped a lot. I was fine for, let me see, from 25 to 47. And then menopause hit, and I had a bad time with menopause. And I've been pretty sick since then. It's been up and down. But then about 3 years ago, I was introduced to a new drug called Vraylar, and I've been well ever since. So I've had 3 years.
Good.
It's been very good.
Good.
Yeah, it's been absolutely marvelous.
So Sally, you wrote your books to help people. Did you have in your mind who your audience was when you wrote the book? Are you writing it for a certain person?
Well, anybody with bipolar,
Okay.
and also their family and friends and professionals, anybody that's interested in the subject.
Okay. And how has the response been to your book?
Wonderful.
Good.
It's been great. I'm really pleased.
Excellent. How old are your books?
My first book is on Amazon,
Okay.
and it was published last June. So it's not
Okay.
that old.
Okay,
I
good.
was 73 when I wrote it.
Well, congratulations. What a great thing to do. That's amazing.
And my next book was published in March this year. So it's fairly new.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
These are my books. I'll show you my books.
Let's see these books. Be
That's
proud
my
of
first
these.
book.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's my first book.
So
And
how
this
to
is my
live with
second book.
bipolar. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And bipolar 1 resource plan. Excellent.
Yes.
A rescue
The
plan.
second-
Yeah. Rescue plan. Yeah.
The second book is very specialized. It's for bipolar 1 only.
Okay.
Okay. The first book is for anybody with bipolar disorder.
So how many subtypes of bipolar are there?
There's 4 subtypes,
Okay.
but I've only mentioned the first 2 in my books
Okay.
to make it easier.
Okay. Okay. So I'm new to the subject, Sally. So
Okay.
I'm here to listen and learn. Tell me, what kind of things do people living with bipolar need to know from your experience about bipolar?
Okay. Well, one thing is very, very important, and I have to stress this, that medication is number 1.
Okay.
If you can get your medication right, you've got a very great chance of being well
Okay.
and managing your life. But if you don't keep your medication, everything goes wrong.
So you were saying it was a 10-year gap from when you first saw this happening. So you
Yes.
have 10 years of, is there 10 years of no medication in that process as you're going
No.
through that?
I had that one manic episode
Okay.
when I was 15.
Okay.
And then from then on, it was depression.
Okay.
But they gave me antidepressants. And antidepressants for a person with bipolar 1 caused mania. So
So
I
it
was
makes
up
it
and down
worse.
for 10 years.
It makes it worse then.
Yes, it made it much worse. Yeah.
So it seems like it is a case for somebody with bipolar that it takes a long time to actually get the results and know exactly what's going on. And in that time, it is not the best situation to be living with this every day.
Right. Yes. Mhm.
So for the family members and the loved ones who are seeing somebody in their life who is at different stages of this, how can we be an ally? How can we be supportive to somebody who is living with bipolar?
Well, the number 1 thing again is medicine.
Okay.
So if you can manage to keep your partner or your child on medication, that's the main thing that will keep them well. Because many people just go off medication. They don't want to take it. It's very common. About, I think it's 60% of people actually go off medication at some stage and they get sick.
Is coming off the medication because they're feeling better and they feel like they don't need it anymore?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. They don't realize that it's the medication that's making them feel well.
So for the medication that you've had in the past, are there side effects that you have to live with because of the medication?
To an extent, there's side effects with every medication.
Yeah.
Even if you take aspirin, there's side effects.
Yeah.
You're going to get a headache or you're going to get an upset stomach sometimes, and then you have to discontinue it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with medication for bipolar. If you get unbearable symptoms, then you change the medication.
Mm-hmm.
But the symptoms, the side effects that you get normally are very mild. So you can either get used to them or you can change the medication.
Okay. I was listening to somebody talking, Sally, about bipolar. They are bipolar as well. And they said that there was 3 things that they struggle with. The first one was anxiety. So being anxious. The next one was depression. And the last one was unwanted thoughts. So 3 things. In your experience and with your knowledge, anxiety, depression, and unwanted thoughts, are those common, do you think, for somebody with bipolar?
Very common.
Okay.
Depression is a given. You're going to have depression. That's
Okay.
a given. And unwanted thoughts come with depression. So that's part of depression. Anxiety is not part of bipolar.
Okay.
But people with bipolar usually get anxiety. It goes with the disorder.
But it's separate from.
It's separate, and excuse me, and panic attacks are separate as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Sally, what do you think is the most common stigma that people have about bipolar and people living with bipolar?
Well, there's a lot of stigma and it hasn't gone away.
Mm-hmm.
We are in 2022 and it's still bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult to live with all this stigma. And a lot of people have self-stigma as well. They don't accept themselves. And many people don't accept that they have bipolar at all. They can go for many years, in fact, without admitting it. And that happened to me. I won't even dare to tell you, many years before I actually admitted that I have bipolar disorder. It's not a label anybody wants.
No. So the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're taping this podcast in the month of May. And I'm glad that we're doing this because I think that more people need to learn and understand how they can be a part of the solution for people who are living with bipolar and to be more aware and helpful rather than push people away. We need to bring people closer, would you say?
Yes, very much so. The problem with bipolar is that the person actually pushes other people away quite commonly, because when they're depressed, they often don't want to speak to other people. They want to isolate. So that's difficult with people trying to help them. You know, they can do all they can, but if the person doesn't accept help, it's very difficult. And with mania, it's even worse.
So can you talk about mania a little bit, Sally? I need to know more about this.
Yes. Mania is only experienced with bipolar 1.
Okay.
Bipolar 2 has hypomania and bipolar 1 has mania.
Okay.
And they're quite different. So people with mania lose control, basically. They don't know what's going on. They can't remember it while it's happening, but they may remember later. But when they're manic, they're in a different world.
So, so I'm again, like I said, Sally, I'm learning here with you, and I'm really appreciate that you can give me wisdom on this. What is a meltdown then?
A meltdown. Oh. Well, I can't really say.
Because you hear people say that they have a meltdown where everything just shuts down and they withdraw, they pull away from people. Is that sound like?
That's depression.
That's depression. Okay.
Yes. People do say they've had a meltdown, but it's not correct. You know, you've had depression or you've had mania. If you've got bipolar disorder and it's not a meltdown, you've either got one of those conditions.
Okay.
It's bipolar. So you've got one or the other.
All right. So I know that we place a lot of time and effort on first aid for physical things that you can see that are wrong with somebody. They've broken their arm and we need to fix it. That's a visual thing.
Right.
Mental struggles are not visual.
No, that's very true.
Right. And it's very hard as a person who is disconnected or observing to know how to help in that kind of situation.
Bipolar disorder is a very complex disease. Hardly anyone can understand it. Even the doctors have a problem with it. So for anybody else to know what to do is very, very difficult. You can make a mistake very easily, and then the person doesn't want to know you. And if they're in mania, they can upset you tremendously. They lose people in mania lose all their relatives and friends and nobody speaks to them again. That's common.
Is that
But
because of the stigma or the lack of understanding?
no, it's a relationship destroyer,
It is, okay.
because in mania you lose your temper very quickly and you shout at people and call them names, and it's a horrible experience. And then you don't realize it at the time, but later when you try to apologize, they don't usually accept your apology, and that's why you lose all your friends and relatives.
That's sad, Sally.
Yes,
That's very sad
I'm
to hear
talking
that.
about, this is the norm for
Yeah.
most people.
That's actually quite disturbing, Sally, to know that
Yes.
people's responses are not making anything better for anyone.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So
But if you're being shouted at,
yes,
it's very difficult. I appreciate that.
yeah, it's very, I just think that people need to have a little bit more grace in their life for others around them, and to be, I guess, more patient and more loving, I guess,
Yeah.
because we are very self-focused. We're very caught up in our own personal day-to-day, and sometimes people are an annoyance because we have our own thing to do today, and I don't have time for Sally because I'm busy, right? And then we need to make more time for people, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Yes, but the problem is, I'm talking from the parents or from the spouse or the friend's point of view. You can be very understanding and loving on one occasion when there's one episode, but then the next week there's another episode and you've got to go through it all over again. Then there's another one and another one. Bipolar is relentless.
Yeah. I heard one person say that they describe their bipolar as a bully that lives inside their brain, and they can't escape.
Absolutely. I call it a monster.
A monster. Okay. Wow. So we're talking to Sally Alter today, and she has her two books, How to Live with Bipolar and Bipolar 1, The Rescue Plan, which is great. So happy that you wrote these books, Sally.
Thank you.
And people are giving you great reviews. I've been reading the reviews online of your book and your help for people. Can you think of some people that you have spoken to in the past and how your journey has helped somebody else?
Well, did I tell you I write for Quora magazine, internet website?
I saw this on your website. Can you talk about this? This is really interesting.
Yeah, I've been writing for Quora for about 3 years now, and I've written over 4,000 answers.
Wow.
And 800 of those have been on bipolar disorder.
Wow.
So it's a lot of answers.
And a lot of people looking at your answers, I see.
Right, and I get comments every day. So I'm sure I'm helping people out there because I'm always being told.
That's great. Sally, like in South Texas and America, are there places that are allies that are speaking for people who have this bipolar? Like, is there any way that we can raise this as so people understand it better and learn real facts about this?
Well, there's the organization NAMI,
okay,
that are doing a lot for bipolar disorder. They work at it all the time. And there's the DBSA, and they're doing the same. So hopefully to raise awareness of it.
So
but then we come into another problem.
Okay, what is that?
That people that have bipolar have to decide whether they're going to tell people or not. And some people are very open about it and tell all their family and friends and colleagues at work and the boss, whereas other people say nothing. So even with the person who has bipolar, there's this stigma. And all around them, everybody that knows them, if they actually mention they've got bipolar, they sometimes are stigmatized.
That's interesting. Yeah. Do you think people hide that because they don't want to be embarrassed, they don't want to deal with it? Like, why would people hide their bipolar?
I don't know. I mean, it's up to the person, really.
Yeah.
I'll tell you an example of what happened to me.
Okay.
This is one of many, but this is an example. I went to a church for 5 years in Texas, and I knew everybody and I was friendly with everybody. Then one day I happened to say that I've got bipolar disorder. Before you know it, the whole congregation ignored me.
Wow.
Nobody spoke to me again. And if people were in little groups, I'd go up and they would disperse. And the worst thing that really got to me was when I sat down next to people, they would excuse themselves and get up and walk away. So that was my experience, and I didn't go to that church anymore.
So I grew up in the church, Sally, and the church is supposed to be a place where people can feel safe and comfortable and loved,
Right.
accepted, and part of the community. And I apologize that you had that experience. That is not a great demonstration of what that community is supposed to be about.
Right.
It's not having a bipolar in you is not a contagious thing, right? That they could catch. This is somebody with bipolar is looking for community and looking for support and acceptance.
Yes.
Correct. So how can people in that situation, how could we have turned that whole situation around for you where you would have felt safe in that community?
There's always this stigma around.
Yeah.
You just don't know who you're talking to. Even at work, if you happen to tell one colleague and then they gossip, then people don't want to know you.
And that makes it worse for you.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Because not only could you possibly retreat yourself from people, but people are pushing you away at the same time.
Yes.
Which is not helpful at all.
No, that's right. Yeah. In fact, people with bipolar have so many jobs, they can't hold a job down at all.
That's
because they're sick
thing. Yeah.
And because of the stigma. I mean, 4 weeks at a job is sometimes a long time for a person with bipolar.
So if I'm an employer, Sally, and I'm looking at your resume and I see job after job after job after job, sometimes people say that's a person you don't want in your business.
Oh, yes.
Right. But it's nothing to do with whether or not Sally is a good employee or Sally can do the job.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a totally different indication of something else going on. And as an employer, I might be prejudiced towards you just by looking at a piece of paper with your name on it and a list of all the jobs.
Sure, that's for sure.
Not even understanding that your struggle is real.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, Sally, if you were working for an employer and you were vocal and you spoke to them and told them that you have bipolar, what kind of things would you need from an employer to feel safe so that you don't pull back?
Well, you'd need some understanding for the episodes.
Yeah.
If a person was very depressed, to try to cope with work when you're depressed is very, very difficult because everything slows down, your thinking and your speech and your movements, everything slows down and you have no motivation to do anything. So trying to do your work is very difficult indeed. And then mania, you can't sit still. You're running all over the place and you've got lots of thinking, ideas coming all at once. So you can't concentrate on what you're doing. And you become very irritable and angry with people. It's a terrible disease.
And I guess there would be all of the social norms that we're used to where everyone kind of fits in their own little space and we all work together and no one rocks the boat. Nobody draws attention to themselves, right? And as soon as somebody does, people kind of pull back.
Right.
And in this situation, you're looking for help. You're looking for somebody to come alongside of you and be an ally.
But you can understand the person if, say, you're working with somebody And the person that has bipolar is 1 minute they're crying in their chair, and then the next minute they're laughing and joking. So it's very difficult for a person to understand.
Wow.
I sympathize with them.
Sally, this is a really interesting topic, and I'm so happy that we got to record this in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. This is perfect timing to be able to speak to you. And do you have? This is a question I like to ask people, Sally. What is your message to the world?
Oh, that's a big one.
It's a big one, right? As far as bipolar and
my message
all
to
of
the
these
world.
things.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see the end of all this stigma.
Okay.
That would be nice, to have acceptance that it is a disease and it can be managed. It can't be cured. There's no cure, but it can be managed with medication and therapy. It's very important, and lifestyle changes. So with those three things, it can be managed.
Is there anything else as well, Sally, that you'd like to leave the audience with? We're going to put notes in here for your website, for your book, for people to go buy the book. I love talking to authors, but is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience? We have listeners around the world listening to this that can help them in their life, whether they have bipolar or they live with somebody with bipolar. What would you like to share with them here as we end off in a few minutes?
Okay. Well, I would say that there's always hope, to never give up hope. There's always something you can do. If the medication isn't right, you go back to the doctor and you find a medication that works.
Yes.
And if you don't have therapy, try to get therapy. Psychotherapy is good, to talk to somebody when you've got problems, everyday problems. And your lifestyle, if you can certainly change that, you're going to make a big difference in your life. So I would say there is hope, but you've got to work at it yourself.
It won't all be done for you. You're going to be part of the solution.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
But
yes.
allow people to help you by being vocal and telling people that this is something that you have, and then allowing people into your world to be there for you.
I've been very open and honest with you. I haven't sugarcoated it at all.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I appreciate it.
It's a difficult disease to manage.
So Sally, when you let people in, make sure you let the right people in to your life who can help you and be your strength and ally for those times and give you grace, right? Because sometimes things are not going to be pretty, but if I'm your ally and I want to help you and I'm aware and you share that with me out of confidence that I can help you, then I need to be there for you.
That would be marvelous.
And have patience and grace in times when you need it.
Yes.
And I think
that would be great.
That's one thing I think from my side of the camera speaking with you, Sally, that I'm learning today. And I feel like I really need to pursue this more so that I can help other people and be that person for them.
Yes. Well, I hope people will read my books, and I've written all about it, so you can learn from that.
Thank you, Sally, for sharing your story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on our podcast. I really appreciate you.
Thank
Enjoy that
you,
South Texas heat down there.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much. Hi guys, this is Dave from Living the Next Chapter, a podcast designed to connect authors and audiences. We're always on the lookout for our next interview. If you're an author, a publisher, and you have a book, whether you're just starting, whether you're halfway through writing, or it's all done and you want to tell the world, that's why we're here at Living the Next Chapter. Get in touch with us through livingthenextchapter.com, contact us, and let's set up some time together to discuss your book, to discuss your project, and how we can get you on the show. My name is Dave, and I would love to speak to you. So go to livingthenextchapter.com, and let's get over there together and discuss all the great things that you're up to as an author, as a publisher, and let's grow your audience together. Join us on livingthenextchapter.com for great authors and an audience that's eager to hear about what you're up to as an author and a publisher. Contact us today and let's get your book out in front of others. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.